Um, the next speaker up, his name is Josh Hong. As he's coming up stage, I'm just going to tell you a quick story about Josh. And one of the things that I find it extremely empowering about his ability to literally wake up at any given time and give a fantastic speech. This was taken 1 minute and 30 seconds ago. This is Josh, fell asleep on a chair over there, and I was so sure about his ability, I decided to take a selfie with him. So Josh is a co-founder of Mind.AI. Towards the end of his presentation, that he's going to talk about the ethics part and so on and so forth from good decentralization, or what makes a good decentralization or governance. We're going to invite his partners that they didn't have the chance for the Q&A and get people to ask Q&A. And his partner, I don't know if you guys recall, Paul Lee, that spoke earlier, and two of their engineers. I hope they're in the audience. Please raise your hand if you're here. Oh, okay, fantastic. So I'll let Josh come up stage. Please help me welcome Josh Hong.
Is the presentation work? Okay. Good. Hello. I'm Josh, and I am severely sleep deprived for the past couple of days. I think like last maybe 10 days or so, I was in Dubai, I was in Geneva, and then I fly back to LA, and then I had to go to Las Vegas with my wife, and ended up staying up 3 nights in a row at a music festival called EDC, and then and then I took the red eye last night to came here, and I arrived here I think like 8:30 in the morning. So I am a little bit tired, but I am also stoked. So I have an interesting message for you guys because I have an interesting background. So just to give you my personal history. So I was born in South Korea, and then I mainly grew up in the US as an immigrant. And I went through this stereotypical Asian American upbringing, went to technical school, got an engineering degree, joined Accenture, ended up getting an MBA, and then went to Wall Street, became a M&A banker. Didn't like it too much, didn't like the culture at all, so I decided to become an entrepreneur in the online gaming space. And I ended up building 3 startups, raised excess of roughly about $100 million in venture capital, had 2 exits, and then decided to start my own venture fund, invested in 25 different companies, and then now back to building a new startup. So if you sort of look at my background, I am very much a Eastern kind of trained person. Also, I am Western educated. I have a technical background, but I also studied engineering, corporate finance, accounting, and then I also did entrepreneurship, and then also did venture capital. So I just weave through many different sections of this life, and picked up a few lessons. And that makes me very humble for something that is bigger than myself. And I call that spirituality. And I don't know how else to describe it, because maybe people call that God or ethics or code of conduct or what have you. But something that my logical mind cannot explain, but it's there, it is so there, I call that spirituality. And I think that it is very important to start that conversation in this AI space. Because what I see today in the AI space is way too much focus on application, specific actions that essentially makes money. And while we are pursuing these endless piggish capitalistic pursuit using technology as a tool, now we're about to use AI, which could be our next evolutionary step, to possibly destroy us. And we have no idea as to how to approach that. And I just don't see a lot of conversation about this issue. And I think it's important to have that conversation. So my contribution to this group is to perhaps maybe I could give you some idea as to how to even start the conversation. So let's go to the next slide. So back in 2011, there was this researcher in Switzerland, and she basically went through OECD reports that listed roughly about 40,000 TNCs. These are transnational corporations. And what TNC stands for is when you look at companies like Samsung or let's say Google or Apple, a lot of people think that it's one corporation, but in actuality, it isn't. It is a holding company at the top, and then there could be hundreds of companies underneath it. And through a very sophisticated voting control shares, a few at the top basically controls the entire structure. And OECD went after listing these companies. They found 40,000 of them. So this particular researcher actually did a statistical analysis and identified that within 40,000, there are actually 147 supernode TNCs. What that means is that on top of these TNCs, there are even more higher level holding companies controlling essentially the entire global economy. And when you dig into those 147 supernodes TNCs, what you find is that roughly about 100 financial corporations basically control all of it. So if you look at the geometric shape of the global economy, it looks like a bow tie, and in the middle there's a choke point. And these 100 financial corporations, these are, let's say, JP Morgans of the world, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, what have you, they essentially control the whole thing. And assuming that you put roughly about 20, members of the board of directors on each companies, I will argue that roughly about 2,000 individuals basically control the global economy. Now let's just think about that for a minute. And what does that mean? The entire 7 billion people on the planet are in the hands of those roughly about 2,000 individuals. And what motivates them? In the past, I would say 5 decades or so, on Wall Street, there's one mantra that basically controlled everything, or that created this massive monetary system, that is shareholder value maximization. In a sense, what that means is that you as a board of director, when you vote, you gotta make sure that your share price goes up. And this is why when you look at Wall Street today, almost all of top Fortune 50 corporations, they stop investing in innovation. And what they do is they turn the entire operation into financial engineering scheme, where these CEOs and board of directors, they essentially are heavily incented by their stock options. And when they stockpile cash, what they do is they use the cash to buy back stocks, increase the share price, and get their pay. That is our monetary system today. And those 2,000 individuals, when I look at their ethical standards, what do they actually, or why should they care so much about the planet when their pay is heavily dependent on, let's say, their stock price? Let's think about it a little bit. Another topic, in the area of AI, Tencent in China did a research, And they basically try to find answers to a couple of questions. Question number one, how many AI experts out there, and of which, who really matter, and then who are they working for? And they basically identify 300,000 AI engineers available on the planet, of which roughly about 10,000 of them are considered true experts. And when you actually count and then go after those 10,000 engineers and try to understand who they work for, it comes down to roughly about 7 corporations divided in 2 countries, US and Canada. It's usual suspect in the US, Amazon, IBM, Google, Facebook, what have you. And in China, it's Tencent and also Baidu. Again, the same question. When you look at those 7 corporations and how they make money and how the decisions at the board of directors are being made, how should they actually direct these valuable AI resources to support their mission? Their mission is to increase the stock price, not necessarily solve the grand challenges of the humanity. They may say it, but at the end of the day, the bottom line says that their job is to maximize their shareholder value. So often, these engineers, what they do is literally they're spending a lot of their time optimizing banner placement, because bulk of their revenue comes from advertising.